So when I defined leadership, I defined it as energizing a community of people toward their own transformation in
Mm.
order to participate in God's mission in the world, right? So,
Yeah.
so we need
Yeah.
to be transformed for the mission that God has given us.
Yeah.
And that's everybody. That's like, so the job of the leader of the community is not to be the sole transformation person. It's to lead and energize a community of people toward transformation. So more and more and more, I think the questions we're going to have to think about in terms of marks of success, maybe that rather than metrics, is what are the metrics of the transformed life? What does it look
Mm.
like to be
Hmm.
to have more of our people more deeply connected to each other and more deeply connected to the mission of God in the world?
Mm.
Um, what does it mean? How might we measure that our community is actually known, that our church is known in our community for being something that brings value and life and joy and peace?
Yeah.
I worked with a church in New Zealand, and this was their mission statement. It was to make our neighborhood a better place to live.
Yeah.
I said,
I love it.
wasn't that great? I said to them,
Yeah.
so tell me where you get that mission statement. They said, well, they happened to be in an urban neighborhood that was right outside the city of Auckland. And they said, our neighborhood is just a bunch of apartments where people barely knew each other. They're the kinds of people who took these apartments because they couldn't afford to live in a better neighborhood closer to their work. So
Mm.
everybody just gets on the bus or gets off the bus. And they barely know each other. We planted a church in this neighborhood for the purpose of saying this neighborhood needs to be a good place to live.
Yeah.
And what they just did is they just made this neighborhood come alive with
Yeah.
street fairs and connections and opportunities of service and neighborliness and love. Like their mission was to enliven this part of a
Yeah.
city that people
Yeah.
felt disconnected to. And I think, so how do you measure that? Well, you measure that
Right.
in the joy of people who
Mm.
stay more connected, people who,
Yeah.
decide not to sell out of their apartment and move because they want to have a deeper sense of community.
Mm.
And I think part of what's going to come out of this year, this year where we had not only a health crisis, but an economic
Mm.
crisis, a
Yeah.
growing, deepening awareness of racial injustice that was, so
Right.
for some of us, was below the surface, and others of us they lived with every day.
Yeah.
Like that, we need our churches to be places that to be communities that make our neighborhoods and our cities better, more joyful communities of life.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a different kind of leadership to do that.